and welcome to Our World, Our Power radio show. I'm Lady Pauline and my co-host, Mr. Glenn Renrich.
Hello there.
And Dr. Aurora.
Hello.
Welcome. I have a special guest today by the name of Robert Gum. He's a journalist. Robert, welcome to Our World. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Good to see you guys.
Yes. Robert, I know we've been doing business for a few years together, but I never ever asked you, how did you get started and who inspired you to write?
The first part, the second part's sort of tough, but I'll try my best. The first part is, this is a second career for me. My first career was as a school teacher of English and an assistant principal supervising English and reading. And I actually had some success with that. While I was doing that, I was also teaching college. And as a college teacher, particularly when I was school supervisor, I was publishing mostly educational articles. I've been published by the U of T paper, by a principal's journal, and by Teacher of Color, which was a particular honor for me since it's a very high-ranked African-American outlet, and that got tremendous amount of actually feedback, because what I wrote was the need for individualization of instruction, and I thought there was a lot of racism in education in terms of various ways exams are presented. So that was a very key issue for me. Actually, that segued into my time as retired, and I was pretty much writing all the time, doing speech writing, a lot of editing. I do editing work for doctors and the like. And then I had an epiphany. I said, why don't I do something different, get out of education and start writing about other issues. So I started writing about community events, various people I had met, and that really started taking off. So in the process, I got picked up by a paper called the South Asian Times, Epic Times, a lot of other papers, and currently the papers that run my columns, and maybe I can get in this published reporter. The next is Our World Media.
Now, you are one of my
Pauline,
excellent writers.
That might mean something to you.
Yes, it
But
does.
Our World Media, by the way, I'm going to read the others that published me as well, has a lot of status and prestige. So when I tell people, that's why conversation with Pauline was, so Pauline, when I send you something, please put it in, because actually the word of Our World Media is beginning to get around.
Oh, thank you.
So it really does have a little clout, a lot of clout. So I said, Pauline, when I tell people I'm in that paper, please publish it pretty quickly. So the last one she didn't do yet, but I'm going to get to those things. But the one you did do, Pauline, which is doing very, very well, is my column on Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh, yes, that was an excellent story. I mean, he was one of my favorite singers, actors, dancers when I was growing up as a kid. And I'm sorry that he's not around anymore, but his memory is still quite alive. Don't you think so?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So, Pauline, what I'm going to ask you to do is please put in the other columns quickly, but your big thing, Pauline, as everyone knows, was in the media and entertainment. So I'd like you, Pauline, not to put you on the spot, is get that column sent to some of Sammy's descendants, if you can do that. You want me to mention something about the column, or?
Yeah, there was something that you had written about John F. Kennedy in there. There was a dispute. I don't know if people realize that years ago there was a dispute
Between Kennedy,
John F. Kennedy and Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah.
Oh, really? No.
Please read my column. Read my column, guys. You guys are great. Okay, basically with the column, I'll tell you, first let me tell you how I came to write the column.
Okay, good.
I was a lifeguard while I was in college.
Okay.
And I used to go up to upstate New York. Now you can get the column. Pauline, maybe you can mention how they could get the column from your outlet, because that would be helpful.
Okay,
so it was 1970, and I was in college, and I was working as a lifeguard in a place called Brickman's Hotel. That's in the Catskills.
Oh,
It's
Catskills.
Catskills are mostly dead now.
Right.
But they used to have great entertainers there.
Yeah, that used to be a hot spot for the summertime.
Exactly. Unfortunately for me, I was working all the time, so it wasn't a hot spot. I was trying to make sure no one drowned in the pool.
Right.
Which thank God they didn't. No thanks to me. Okay, so I said to the captain of the bellhops, we became friendly.
Yeah.
I said, who is the nicest guy you ever met? Because again, Dean Martin was there, all kinds of people.
All kinds
He
of
said,
people came
Sammy
there,
Davis
yeah.
Jr. I said, tell me why. So this is the story he tells me. It's 1962. I'll get to JFK in a moment. And Sammy was married to a Swedish woman. And he came up there, and the bellhop was particularly rude and racist to him. Man, this is upstate New York in the 60s.
In the 60s,
This is a
yeah.
redneck.
Yeah.
So Sammy tells the owner. The owner has the guy fired. Sammy now comes back 2 years later. This is the bellhop telling me the story.
Right.
And I remember it like it happened yesterday. Okay, so one of the fired bellhop's friends says, Mr. Davis, I want to remind you I had this disgusting friend. I'm not sticking up for the guy. I know he was a racist. You had him fired. You had him correctly fired. But he hasn't worked in 2 years. He has 4 kids and a wife, and he's losing his house. So Sammy says, how much would he have made? I think he said $12,000. Give me his name. He writes out a check. And he says, tell him to come in Monday. I'll have his job back.
Oh, wow.
That was Sammy. Paulie, did you read
Yes,
my
yes, I do. Every time I hear the story, I get really excited.
So now I'm sitting on the story for 40 years. I'm telling my students in class about it. Everyone's saying great story.
Yeah,
so now I watch Sammy Davis. They had a documentary on Sammy. I said, God, now I'm writing the story.
Right.
Then you do a lot of research. So how does the column begin? Again, listeners, go to All World Media. Robert Golomb, Sammy Davis Jr. Joe, please make sure they can see it. Okay? And this is how the column started. It begins by saying Sammy Davis is playing golf with one of his good friends, the comedian Jack Benny.
Sure.
So the guy working the golf says, Mr. Davis, what's your handicap? And Davis says, handicap? I'm a Negro Jew with one eye. He had one eye, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
The glass
And then
yes.
the column explains, I don't know if you want me to spend too much time in the column.
No.
Go on. And then the column explains how that happened. But what happened with JFK, as Pauline mentioned, was Sammy had worked with Frank Sinatra and other people on behalf of
The
JFK.
Rat Pack.
The Rat Pack.
The Rat Pack. And
Yeah.
Sammy was a big help there.
Yeah.
Okay, so they asked, so Sammy was supposed to perform at JFK's inauguration because Sammy was married to this May woman, the same woman who caused who created that racist to be obnoxious. JFK disinvited him. Not only told him not to perform, but disinvited him from attending.
Wow.
And that was a hurt that remained with Sammy for the rest of his life.
Sure.
Wow.
Sure.
So,
Last story I'll tell you on Sammy.
I mean,
What made Sammy become Jewish?
Yes.
He has a friend, Shecky Green, comedian.
I've heard the name,
Sammy's
yes.
good friend. And Shecky says, Sammy, I'm giving you this mezuzah. For those people who are not Jewish, mezuzah is hung up in the home of Jewish folk.
Okay.
Sammy, not being a Jewish guy, wore it around his neck for good luck.
Okay.
He wears it every day for 2 years. One day he forgets it. That was the day he was in the car accident, which he lost his eye.
Get out.
Read my column, guys. Read my column.
I love the story. I love the story.
Yeah, read the column. So anyway, so that's it. And I'll tell you the truth. I think you can tell. It's like when there's some stories you just want to write.
Yes.
So I've been wanting to tell the story about me being a lifeguard for all those years. I've been wanting to, and I'm sort of like Pauline. I think Pauline is Sammy Davis is that correct? Pauline?
Yes,
I've been
yes,
friends for
yes,
a while.
yes,
She's
yes.
Sammy Davis in terms of her goodness, and so is George. You just met. I sense that in you as well. So I said, this is a story I want to write.
Wow.
And I wrote it, and it was just a very, very good feeling. Point, could you send it out to your Hollywood buddies?
Yes, I will
It'd be nice
definitely
to
get in
some-
contact with Sammy Davis family and try to let them know that the article is up in
I
our
think it'll
world.
make them feel good about
Yeah,
the
well,
kind of guy
yeah.
he was.
okay, good.
Can I continue the paper?
George.
So,
Yeah.
just before we continue, I would like us to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day weekend because, we really respect and honor those fallen heroes, people that have given their life
Yeah.
in defense of our liberty. And, it's really a great
That's
time
true.
for
Yeah.
all Americans. And,
Yeah, George,
it's
I
something that
salute
you
you for
see.
that.
This flag here
I see the
represents
flag.
that.
I see the flag.
You're very patriotic, Dr. George and Nora. You're very
Happy
patriotic,
Memorial
man.
Day, everyone.
Just to tell you, listeners, George and I have been friends, I'd say about 5 years now. I consider you a friend, George. You feel the
Yeah,
same way.
of course.
And I always know that in George. George is a real patriot. George is also someone who devotes a lot of time to his community.
Yes, he does.
So anyone listening who doesn't know George, you try to get to know him.
That's why I have these lovely co-hosts as my partners in crime and everything, Dr. Georgia Nora and Mr. Glenn Greenwich, the Honorable Mayor of Suffolk Boulevard.
Oh, you sound yeah. Now,
Yes,
for
he
the
is.
listeners, Glenn and I just met about 10 minutes ago, and it's just wonderful. But Pauline and George I've known for a while. So I said, guys, please let me on the show. I begged them. They said, okay, you can go on. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I've got a question for you, Robert.
Yeah.
There's something about your life. You've got a colorful life. What do you attribute that? Because clearly that comes out in your writing.
Let me see. My wife's in the studio. I would say my wife.
Oh, really?
I would say my wife.
That's a
has
smart
really
move on your
inspiring
part.
to me. And having a lovely daughter
Uh-huh.
has been great. And basically, I always had the feeling I had to do what was right to make the world a better place.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what inspires me. And when I write, and Sinatra, I always loved Frank used to say, two things I'll tell people who want to be writers that Frank said. The first thing is his daughter, Frank was a big fan of Ella Fitzgerald. But all these things are part of my being.
Okay.
Big fan of Ella Fitzgerald. So he said to his daughter, I wish I could sing like Ella. She then said, then you wouldn't be Frank Sinatra.
Yes.
So to those people who want to be writers, what have you, you're never competing with the next person. You're only competing with yourself, and you have a particular talent. So I think whatever talent I have, I try to use it to the best of my ability to make the world a better place. I would never write anything that in any way would make the world less kind.
Okay.
That's the first thing. The second thing Sinatra would always say before I sing, could I still do it? So I just finished a column on this guy, Dr. Yang, who was actually a world-renowned, world-known civil rights leader for the freedom people in China.
Okay.
And it was 3,500 words. And then I started another story on a guy named Jim Neary, who owns Neary's Restaurant. Are you familiar with it?
I've heard that
The
name.
people who've attended his customers included Giuliani, Clinton, I don't think Obama, Clinton, the Bushes have been there, various Kennedys have been there, and he has so I'm now working on that column, so I say, I was sort of drained from the other column.
Sure.
It was draining, and I said, could I do it? Yeah, I could still do it. And at the same time, I'm working on a book on free enterprise capitalism. And I'm
wait a minute, on free enterprise
capitalism.
capitalism.
I love Glenn.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
And I'll tell you, if my friend, it's interesting. The nice thing about writing a column about people, how I met George and Glenn, you and Pauline, you really meet a lot of people.
Sure.
So I met this particular guy. I was at an event with Corey Lewandowski. Corey Lewandowski was Trump's campaign manager till he got fired. So there was an event actually at one of the bars in Manhattan. So actually the guy who was the PR guy, Life is Strange, I said, I want to see Corey's book because he says, well, you'll see him tonight at the event. I said, but you didn't invite me to the event. He says, oh yeah, I forgot about that. It turns out I get treated with disrespect. I said, you might have mentioned that. There was some, anyway, I come in there. I was probably the last person in the world. I went in there, and I saw Giuliani, and I had written a story on Giuliani. I tell you, as an aside, I did a story on Giuliani the week before Koch died. I didn't interview. The week before Koch died. Okay. And I'm a Giuliani fan in terms of a lot of people, I have empirical research to prove this, are alive today who might not have been had he not been mayor. Okay. So anyway, so I write the column on Giuliani. This, I think, when I was senior editor of South Asian Times. It's supposed to go to press on Friday. Everything's done, but I'm mocking Koch throughout the whole thing.
Right.
Wednesday, Koch dies. So now I have a column where I'm mocking Koch. So the editor, of course, said, Bob, we're going to be out of business.
Yeah.
You can't mock someone who just
Who
died.
died.
Yes.
So I have to rewrite the column and that stuff. Okay, so I'm now with the event fast forward to with Lewandowski, who was there but Rudy.
Okay.
So I go over, I said, Mr. Mayor, he sent me a letter thanking me for it. I got the letter from you. He looked at me like I was crazy. Then I told him the story. Then he started to laugh. Then I hooked up with Corey, who made arrangements for me to do the interview.
Sure.
There are about 100 people, a lot of journalists, a lot of people you see, not just on Fox and CNN. It was really a nice event. Why was I invited? Because they liked my column. I knew it wasn't for my personality, good looks, etc.
Yes, it was.
Why
Yes,
not?
it was.
Why not?
Definitely
That's why.
was.
So anyway, they invited me there, and I started talking to some fellow, and he had a very good friend who's a priest named Father Kelly.
Okay.
So we became friendly, and we said, let's meet for lunch. We met at Neary's.
Okay.
In 57th Street and First Avenue.
Okay.
We were discussing free enterprise capitalism.
Yeah.
We had this discussion outside. Whatever you hear from people, it's free enterprise capitalism that creates wealth.
Yes.
And if you want to be generous to people, my view is we are a brother's keeper.
Yeah.
I'm a total traditional liberal in that sense, but you're not going to be a brother's keeper if you have Venezuelan socialism.
Right.
Or Cuban socialism. So that's why I believe that you have to have free enterprise capitalism to create wealth, but we have to be generous with that wealth.
Exactly. Yes.
So anyway, so he and I had lunch, and we said we're going to do the book on free enterprise, and it's really been a lot of fun.
Interesting.
When is the book coming out?
I wish I hadn't asked Pauline. 12 chapters. Chapter 1 will be done in about 3 days.
Okay.
I worked on it for 5 weeks, but when you write together with someone as I've never done before, it's almost like a marriage.
Yeah.
So we've now become compatible. We're now complementing each other well. So I hope to have it done, hopefully by the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
But it's just a lot of fun because it's different than writing a column. It's in a sense it's easier because you're writing a column. You're still sort of limited. There's a word limit. I said this before. You're writing a book. You say we'll explain later in chapter 11.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's just a little bit easier.
Well, it sounds exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, and-
Robert, I want to also say thank you very much for all your columns that you've been writing for Our World Media. I'm honored to have you as one of the writers.
Yeah.
Your work is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know,
Thank you.
And I hope you just don't get bored with us because I'm doing a
No,
lot of stuff.
it's my honor. It's my honor.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over some of the other stuff if I can. I'll explain some of the things people I've met.
Sure.
So
And that's
Robert, just one thing I want to add before you go on, if you don't mind. You mentioned Corey Lewandowski used to be campaign manager for Trump. So when you look at what's going on in politics now, right?
Yeah.
And you hear the phrase "Make America Great Again."
Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
See, George, I knew you were a political scientist. That I knew that for a fact, and you were going to question me those tough questions. By the way, I don't like the expression, and I was pretty much a never Trumper. But I'm an empiricist. And as an educator, I was very much in minority areas, and I used to say to people, you're saying black people don't work? You see how many of these kids are dying to get jobs. Mm-hmm. You see the list of kids on Flatbush Avenue looking for jobs. Donald Trump has delivered. Now, if you really care about these people, I'm saying these people, not just blacks, Latinos, Asians, Jews, you'd have to admit that it came from his policies. So what Make America Great means to me now is there are a lot of people working who otherwise wouldn't have been working. Now, if my research, and by the way, the reason I'm sort of boring sometimes to people, I do research all the time. When I write a column, I really know the subject well. So I don't say things unless, not my opinion, but I look at research. I did a story on Andrew Cuomo, and I said, wait a second, I've since changed a little bit, but after his first term, he had a lot of success. So I wrote a complimentary column about it. Mm-hmm. So when I see how the research goes, I'll follow the research.
Okay.
So what it means to me is there are a lot of people working today who would not have been working were it not for Trump. Now, Trump has clearly a personality disorder, and that's hurt him with a lot of people.
Sure.
But if you really cared about people, you'd say, wait a second, people, now there are more jobs than there were people to fill them. And I wrote a column 6 years ago when Romney was running against Obama. And it was a column that really sort of predicted the future. The Republicans were talking about doing away with unemployment. And I wrote, you're never going to win doing that, because most people, and research shows us who are unemployment, want to work.
Yeah.
Want to work. So the fact that Donald Trump has policies in effect that have helped them work makes me like Donald Trump.
Okay.
And that's it. And if I were to say to you, I don't like him, and thus it's fine with, I want him to lose, even though the consequences might be, a lot of these people now have jobs, are not going to have jobs, I wouldn't be the person I am. And I was a guy, well, I'll tell you how I met Shitachi in a second. So he was not my favorite candidate, but I have to say empirical research shows that he's been very helpful to everyone.
Okay.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
that's good.
5 minutes?
Right now we are listening to Our World, Hour of Power, and I want to say we can be heard on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Google Play, and definitely Caribbean Buzz Radio and TV. You're listening to the word Our World, Hour of Power with Lady Pauline and Greenwich and Dr. George Honora. We're here with my special guest, Robert Gum, who is an award writer. What's next for you?
Okay, what I'd like people to do, if you write in my name and Our World Media or Muckrack, you'll see my column. What's next is the book and a lot of other columns.
Okay.
And I'm going to be at Washington, D.C. on June 4th, taking my wife. I just completed a story on a guy named Dr. Yang. Dr. Yang
That's
is
a Chinese
yeah,
guy.
yeah, it's just
Gentleman is
Glenn, if you want to come, you could definitely come. Feel free to come to Washington, D.C. Anyone is, I'll invite you to the gentleman. We connected on LinkedIn, and I looked at, and he said, I've checked out all the 50 columns. Just, I don't want to brag, but it was just, I'm humbled. So when people think I'm a good writer, it's because I work real hard. Yeah. And he said, Bob, you're the person I want to write a story about me. And that's what I'm saying. He now had, this is in dbchina.com and Citizens Power for China. This is about the 15th and 16th outlets, all second to Our World Media, that cover my stuff. It's translated into Chinese. And he lived an incredible life. You could find the story, Joe. You could find the story pretty easily. He grew up, when he was 3 years old, he saw his dad being beaten up in China and taken off. This is part of the Cultural Revolution. And his father, nevertheless, remained a communist, and they had a big schism. And as you'll see in the column, Dr. Yang went back to China, was involved in Tiananmen Square, came back again, got arrested, spent 5 years in jail. So Tuesday, June 4th, there's going to be an event that he's hosting with several other civil rights leaders, and I'll be attending. Answer your question, I hope to get some stories from people there. Marco Rubio might be there. A lot of leading Democrats, a lot of leading Republicans will be there. I don't select the party, as long as it's a good person doing the right thing, I'll write about the person. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. Now, you want me to say how I got to meet you, Pauline?
Yes, I get. I think.
And George.
Okay.
We have 5 minutes.
We got about 2 minutes left.
2 minutes left.
So
I'm
maybe
sorry.
we'll just wind
Yeah.
up.
Okay, this is how I ended. Okay, there's a fellow named Sheikh Musa. You know him, George? Sheikh Musa runs the Muslim Community Report.
Okay.
And let me see, the Parkchester Times. So I met him through Chitachi Ekton, who was a very good friend of George's and Pauline's.
Right.
He now publishes my column. Now, we were talking for a while, we were sitting together. I said, what do you do? He said, I run a paper. I said, oh, maybe you run my columns, Muslim Community Report. I said, maybe you won't. He said, no, I'm pro-Jewish, pro-Christian, and I want the Muslim religion to become modernized.
Okay.
He and I count him as one of my really closest friends. But you'll see from the column, this is the story. You can write my name, Sheikh Musa, it'll pop up. He comes to America from Africa, a proud Muslim, and he was in a mosque that was a lot of poor people. He sees a temple is donating charity. So he calls us, look, we need clothing, but we're Muslims. He said, of course we'll give you that. Don't worry about it. Okay. He remained close with these people. 10 years later, the temple is going to close. guess where they prayed? At his
At
mosque.
the mosque.
At his mosque for 10 years.
Wow.
Wow, Robert,
And
that's
okay,
a great
Now,
story.
I did this through Chitachi, but who did I meet the day I met Chitachi? George! George Acton, and George, I don't know if you remember this, it was at a Ted Cruz event.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz came to
in
speak,
Brooklyn. Yeah.
and I don't think it's time, but it's an incredible story. It's not time to tell you no day. And then through George, I go to Chitachi, and I see this beautiful woman, and I said, "What's your name?" She says, "Pauline Swift." And from there, she and I became friends.
Friends, yes.
And that's that's how
Now,
how it
I'm
developed.
going to put you on the spot, Robert. I also have Our World on Southern News, which is a community-based newspaper for Queens,
Yeah.
for Southeast Queens. I really would like you to come up with some stories that's going on for Southeast Queens, and I will definitely publish them because that's important as well, what's going on in downtown Jamaica.
How can I say no to you, Pauline?
No, you can't.
But this is what I'm going to say to you, and anyone who's a journalist, be aware of this. I'll do the story, but I got a lot of other outlets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I
Yeah.
wanted to be would be a story that would have interest outside of Queens. So
Okay.
Pauline, if you can give me a story that has interest outside of Queens, like a universal story.
Okay.
I love doing stuff on charities. I love doing stories on people who've had disabilities that they've been able to transcend. So any story, and I'm not going to do, let's say, on the local politics there,
Okay.
but if there's a particular person who's done something that's wonderful, who has particularly helped out people who need help, done stuff to help people of all race, religions, and creeds, or would inspire people.
Sure.
Because I'm writing this really, I have an audience I want to, so if you have any story like that, Pauline,
Okay.
I promise I'll do it.
All right, thank you, Robert. I hate to cut this short. Thank you so much, Robert Gunn, for coming on Our World, Our Power, Hour. Catch you on the flip side.